Or literally wiggling.
Yes,
Wiggles.
just like get it. If you have any nerves or anything, just get it out. Get it out there.
Check this out. Check
Oh.
this 3D printed octopus I just got.
Oh my God, I love it.
It's adorable.
One of my friends made this with a 3D printer for me. It's what it is
What?
like, it's for magnetic nail polish. You like put the polish on your nails and then you can set your finger right here. And this is a magnet and you can just turn it and it makes like the coolest effect.
Is that how you get your nails so cool? Because
Yeah,
I've noticed your nails. That is so neat.
Hi. Hello, everybody. Hi. Welcome back to Intentional Oversharing with me, your host, Neely, Kimey. I have a very special guest with me today. I have Romina Massa. Hi, Romina. I just wanted to give you a chance really quickly to share whatever you want to share about yourself and maybe talk about how we became in one another's orbit, if you'd like to.
Hi, everyone. I'm Romina. I'm a writer. I'm a digital marketer, I guess, digital strategist. I'm on LinkedIn a lot, and that's how I connected with Neely. We are both on LinkedIn a lot, and we both talk a lot about autism. I'm autistic. I am late diagnosed, and one of the things that I learned about Neely the most is about ableism, which is something that I didn't really know close to nothing about. I used to be diagnosed with two other things, or mostly one thing, for like 9 years, but that was not a misdiagnosis, but just the correct diagnosis of only a comorbidity of what was my official diagnosis since childhood, which was autism. So that just became known to me 2 years ago. And so that's how you and I connected too, through our content related to that.
I really love your content. I feel like we both like to share a lot about our lived experience. I feel like that's how people figure out that something might be up. They might be different.
A lot.
Just sharing the reality of it.
I get nervous sometimes when people comment on my content and they're like, oh, you know, this is making me think that I'm this or that I'm that, or I always knew and this confirms it. And I always get nervous because I'm like, I'm not out here telling y'all about my experience to diagnose anyone. And I am really like nervous about it. I'm very by the rules. And I'm sure, you know, as a good autistic person, I am very guided by justice and those things. So I follow the rules and I try to, you know, be square and on the level. And I get really nervous about these things. And I want to be putting out disclaimers everywhere when I can't.
Same here. You can only put so many disclaimers about things, like realistically, especially with short form social media content. And so if anything I post helps anyone to feel seen, we're good. We're solid. That's what I'm after.
Exactly.
But
I love that.
If you want to use that to then seek out your own diagnosis or to seek out more information to self-identify as autistic or any other form of neurodivergence, love it. I love to be a part of that journey, but I'm definitely not out here trying to diagnose anybody over the internet.
No, literally same, right? And I am 100% most definitely not qualified to do so, right? Like, let me put the disclaimer out there here as well. I am not to be trusted with anything other than what I have experienced in my own life. It's heavy sometimes, the responsibility that comes with just putting yourself out there. Sometimes I feel, but I do think that, advocacy work is important.
I absolutely agree. Everybody knows neither of us are doctors. We're not trying to diagnose anyone listening to this, but hopefully you'll feel seen and understood.
Yes, we're here to
by our conversation. Yeah, exactly. So we came together today to talk about a very specific and heavy topic. So I'll go ahead and mention now, trigger warning. We're planning on talking about grief and loss. Something that Romina and I also have in common is we're both a part of the Dead Dads Club, a club that no one is excited to join. No one chooses to join.
I mean, with some exceptions, but really in general.
Right. Yeah. I've experienced personally quite a bit of loss throughout my life. I've talked a little bit about that on the podcast already. And so I just think that this is something that everyone's going to experience at some point in their life. Maybe not the loss specifically of their father, just depending on circumstances, but loss and grief in general. And I think that it affects the autistic brain and the neurodivergent brain maybe a little bit differently. All we can really do is speak to our own experiences of how grief affects us. But it just seemed like a really interesting topic for us to dive into today. Maybe I'll give you a chance first to share a little bit about experiencing the loss of your father.
Yeah.
Timeline, what happened, whatever you feel like sharing. Yeah.
Yeah, it was just 6 months ago. Almost to the day. I mean, today's the 16th and it was on the 13th, 6 months. It was a heavy weekend because of that. I miss him. He left very, very unexpectedly. He was here. He was fine. We were close. He wasn't really sick. There weren't warnings. It wasn't something that anybody saw coming. We were just fine one day, and then one night I got this dreaded phone call and he had a heart attack out of nowhere. He just passed in his house. There was not even a chance for paramedics to make it. By the time the medics got there, he was gone. There was no hope. There was just his time, I guess. And it was really sad for me. I don't carry this with heaviness, but I think about it. It had been 2 nights that I had texted that I was meant to call him, but it had been heavy days for me. And the days got away from me. And I knew that the phone call would be a phone call that I wanted to give my fullest to. And so for 2 nights in a row, my text was, my day got away from me. Hi, I'll call you tomorrow. And he replied, he said, okay. And he sent kisses emoji, and that was it. But, I don't carry that heavily because I checked in. We checked in with each other. We were fine. It was okay. There was no anger. There was nothing between us. We were fine. It was just another night that we couldn't talk. But it was weird because that's how unexpected it was. It was a literal talk to you tomorrow. I mean, we were discussing Netflix shows that we were watching together. We were reading the same books sometimes. I mean, it was really, really quite out of nowhere.
That's really hard. Well,
it really was.
And I appreciate you sharing a bit about that experience. I'm curious to know if you feel comfortable sharing this.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that this was pretty recent for you. Have you had support through this process?
So yes, and it's been expected and unexpected. I'm super happy to say that my sister and I are closer. And, for a little while at the beginning, my sister and I weren't super close and we weren't super there for each other. And I've missed her. But that's no longer the case. And I'm about to see her this weekend and I can't wait. And so, my sister and I are there and are going to be there for each other. What other support I've had that's been important is, the expected, which was my therapist. Which is really, really important support. I mean, my therapist has walked me through this week after week, and it's been important. The unexpected support, which is my boyfriend, whom I met right after my dad passed. I mean, I'm talking about right now what seems or feels like the biggest love of my life right now, right? I'm desperately in love with someone. It's 6 months for us coming up on the 30th. And so that's how back to back the 6 months anniversaries are. But he has become a rock to me throughout this and someone that I don't know how I would have done it without him. And so, here's to Nathaniel too, here he's really been there for me and that's been crazy helpful. And then there's this really weird story I have about having a best friend of 15 years that was there for me at the beginning, but that literally left me 2 months in for unrelated reasons. I have this big story of loss in the middle of the story of my dad's loss that really, really hurt and hurts and continues to hurt because I miss them both. And it was really weird because it was a completely unrelated thing, but it just so happened that my best friend of 15 years literally left me for good, never to speak to me again, 2 to 3 months after my dad died. And so that support, which was significant, was ripped away. And so that's been kind of a loss on loss.
Yeah.
Or I learned that it's called compound grief. And I was forced onto that. And so that happened too. But I can't say for sure I've had support. Okay. And it's been crucial.
I'm really glad to hear that you've had therapy through this. I'm glad to hear you've had your boyfriend. Interesting timing there, right? Like if we're talking about the universe.
Interesting. The interesting
Yeah.
sent me someone when I most needed someone for real, because I was already struggling through a work transition and a thing that I'm still, going up and down with. But this was earth shattering. And the fact that I'm still right here 6 months later and I didn't basically skip a beat in terms of my productivity, in terms of life, speaks a lot to, not just my resilience, but also my support system.
I mean, there's something beautiful about the fact that you and your sister have been able to like rekindle things through this process. Like there's some beautiful things that can come out of these losses.
Exactly. And it was weird with my sister because something weird happened right in the middle of this. But I think it really was a lot just both of us dealing with the loss. I think it was just, at the beginning it was too massive for the two of us. And like I think we both almost like got knocked back into our own shells in a way, but we found our way back now. And I'm excited about that. I really am, because, my sister and I have been close our whole lives. We never really stopped. She's super close to my kids. I'm close to hers. I'm goddaughter of her daughter. She's the goddaughter of my son. I mean, so I'm excited, and they're coming over with Fernanda, my little goddaughter. So It's exciting. I'm excited that they're gonna be here, and we're actually meant to, something heavy. My sister actually has my dad's ashes, and they're at her house. Like he's at her house. And so we are also planning after October, we're going out on my sister's boat to the ocean and scattering him there and doing a last kind of goodbye, because we both were, for his cremation, we both were there in Peru right after. But that will be like kind of the final departure.
Some closure should be a nice little ritual to do with the family.
Exactly. With the family and the kids who weren't able to travel to Lima when he passed, because he was overnight, like right away, next day trip.
Speaking of ashes, I'm gonna run and get something. I should have been wearing my dad. From the beginning of the call, this is some of my dad's ashes.
Oh my goodness!
So for folks,
I wondered if I want to keep some of him.
For anyone that's just listening in and not watching, I have this little like anvil thingy. It's a tiny little metal container with my dad's ashes in it.
So how does that feel? Tell me about it.
It's interesting. So my mom and I both have one of these. I have a half brother who's quite a bit older than me. I didn't know him very well growing up, but my mom got him one of these as well. And then I also have like a little mini urn with some of his ashes in it too. It does bring me some comfort. There's a ring that my dad wore for like so many years, like decades, and he wore it at least since before I was born, never took it off. And it was this really cool ring that was like mixed metals. It would go on his finger, but it looked like a belt, and it was like gold and silver. I loved this ring. And so my mom gave that to me after my dad passed, which I'll talk a little bit about here in a second. But I had that ring hanging from a piece of string on my rearview mirror in my car. And I just had like that little piece of him with me all the time. And then at one point I needed to get my car towed and get a whole bunch of work done on it. And someone stole that ring in the process. I didn't think to take it out. The string was like ripped off, like somebody purposefully took it.
I'm so
that
sorry.
Sucks. And it does suck, but there's not much I could have done to keep that from happening other than remembering to take it out. Having this necklace is nice, especially since I don't have that anymore. So I'll share just a little bit, just so we're swapping war stories in a way, with my dad. He passed away in early June of 2017. He had been sick with cancer for several years at this point. He found out he had stage 4 cancer. So it had metastasized. It was in several different parts of his body by the time they discovered it. But what's interesting about it, so that would have been years before he actually passed. And he was told he had like a few months left at that time. So we were like
Oh, wow.
scrambling. At first, my parents they were trying to keep it from me because they didn't want to like stress me out, basically. But they did tell me. And he ended up going through treatment and he ended up staying with us for it was at least like 3 or maybe 4 years rather
Wow.
than just a few months. Silver lining, I guess, is that we got quite a bit more time with him than we anticipated. So you mentioned this like timing with your boyfriend, meeting your boyfriend pretty soon after this loss. So
Yeah.
I met and started dating my wife just a few months before my dad passed away. So what's interesting about
Oh,
that is
wow.
that she got to meet him, which is a gift in my mind. I think it's really lovely that we were given that opportunity.
I wish my dad would have met my boyfriend.
And his memory, you're going to get to like introduce things to your boyfriend about your dad throughout your time together, which can be a beautiful thing. We were very early on in our relationship, and this was such a big, heavy thing to just fall on top of everything. I've felt very fortunate that I had her as a support, and she's been there since this huge loss. Like, she hasn't thankfully experienced like this level of a loss before. And so it's something that we've like kind of learned different ways to navigate it together. There's no way to be prepared for this kind of loss. So I don't know that it's going to necessarily help her in the future.
It's so massive. I think, the name of the episode is good because of that, because I for sure didn't want to be a part of this club. And it's not something that I can tell anybody. Like, I can't tell you. If you don't know, if you haven't lost your dad, then I can't express to you how massively it hurts and how bad it feels, and just the loss, how immense it is, the hole it leaves. And I couldn't have prepared for it. I think you could have told me that it was going to happen and I still wouldn't have been ready. I wouldn't have been ready for how it feels today, 6 months in. And so I don't think you can prepare, because it's not just about the day you find out. It's about so much more than that. The worst part of it is having to accept that I have to live with his absence forever.
Yeah.
Like, that's the part that gets me. I have to accept, and I don't think I have yet, that he's not ever coming back. That's too much. It's too hard. It's still impossible for me. It hurts, I miss him.
It's
Fucking
incredibly
rough.
painful.
Sorry.
It's some heavy shit for sure. And there's no way to prepare for it. Like, something I've mentioned to you is that I've experienced lots of loss, like unexpected, young, never could have anticipated types of loss throughout my life. And this was totally different. This shattered my world. And I want to mention also, like, losing a parent, I'll say, is such a unique experience. I think anytime somebody goes through that, it's different than any other kind of loss. And it doesn't matter necessarily. I would say it doesn't matter how close you were to that parent. It doesn't necessarily matter. And I'm saying it doesn't matter. Let me clarify. I think like you can have a very complicated relationship with your father. I know way too many traumatized adults who have like, maybe they would say they hated their dad. Maybe they wanted nothing to do with their dad. Lots of like complicated relationships with dads and parents in general. But it's still like a fundamental shift. It's like a change in the way that your life operates, where like even if there was an opportunity to repair things, now it's gone.
And I mean, to me at least, and maybe this is connected to, I did get, he was, even though it was tumultuous, he was an overwhelmingly positive presence in my life. It's weird because it feels scary. Like, do we all go back to being little kids when we lose our dads and we feel lost, like lost at the mall? Who's gonna watch over me now? Like, is that the feeling? Because that's how I feel. Even if my dad and I were not speaking a lot, I knew that he was there. And for me, he was there for me if he was there for me. Like, for me, he was a constant. And so it feels like I've lost something solid that I could always stand on. And that platform that was always there has been like taken away. And so no matter what, I feel, like I have to find something else to stand on. Even though he wasn't someone that I spoke to every day, he wasn't someone that like I ran my decisions by. There were decisions that I did run by him though. There were. But most of the time, it wasn't something like that. My day-to-day was run by my relationship, but my dad, it wasn't. It wasn't a day-to-day situation, but it was deep. It ran deep. I mean, I can tell you, I've met people, I've been close to people who, like you said, might have hated their dads or not talked to them in decades and still been devastated when they died by unfinished business or whatever. It's just a huge loss. I don't think it's very quantifiable.
Because it's really like, no matter what your relationship might have been or how close you might have been, now the world is different. It's just fundamentally different because that person is no longer in it. It's tough. And with my relationship with my dad, like there are times throughout my life where I have said that I hated him. Just being real. We had like a very complicated relationship. He drank a lot throughout my upbringing. He wasn't very like emotionally intelligent. And so we struggled to connect, but it's undeniable some of the traits that I got from him. Like it was always known that he was ADHD. Like the ADHD was undeniable in my dad. And so I definitely got that from him. And I mean, I struggled with alcohol use throughout a big chunk of my life, about 15 years, and got that from him. He had a really, really great sense of humor and like interesting sense of humor, very like intelligent sense of humor. And I like see some of the way that I use my sense of humor. Like there's parallels there for sure.
Yeah.
Especially when he was younger, but probably before I was born. He was like the life of the party. Like he could like gather people around him and people just wanted to listen to whatever came out of his mouth. And I think I got some of that confidence from him as well, which I'm really grateful for. Like there's a lot of aspects about myself that I appreciate that I got from him, no matter how complicated things were.
Me too. There's a lot of me that comes from him or what he taught me or what I did with him when I was a kid or that I inherited from him, literally.
When I brought up like the support that you had after this loss, and you were talked a bit about your therapist and those kinds of things. So whenever we were making a plan to meet and record this episode, I checked in with you a couple of times to make sure that you were like feeling up for it, because we're fundamentally on different like sides of this journey at the moment, different parts of this journey. I think just it's been 8 years
it's
for
raw
me.
for me.
It's so raw for you. And you had mentioned part of why this topic interested you was because you want to talk about it and you know how crucial that is. Have you noticed like maybe kind of facing this head on and talking about it? Like how has that been for you?
It's been hard and I don't like to do it. My therapist wants me to do brain spotting about it. And every time she says we're going to do brain spotting this week, I get there and I'm like, not this week, please, not today, please. I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it because I don't want to. But something I did do, which was so transformative for my grief. It was right after I lost my dad, and I was hanging out also with more people in the like kind of wellness circle, and I was trying to meditate and I was learning to meditate. I had just met someone who does sound baths, and sound baths are something I discovered are the only way that I'm able to meditate. Sound allows me to get to a meditative state, vibration. And so a sound bowl to me is like everything, right? Like I have one and I love it, the vibration of it. My therapist has told me if I ever, I'm feeling like anxious or like restless or whatever, I just go ground myself with a little sound. He's very affordable, this guy that does the sound baths. And I gave myself the luxury of my very own sound bath at my house. And I have a big living room. And so I paid this guy so that he would come to my house to do what he would do in a yoga salon for 20 people. right? And he did it just for me. And so he set up basically 20 instruments because he's got the sound bowl collection and the a gong, a gong, and all kinds of sand drums and things that you click and things that you blow on and flutes. And it's all indigenous. It's all fantastic, handmade, so connected to the earth. And he just regaled me with an hour and a half or so. Neely, I cried and cried so deeply, and I wailed, and I just let it all out in a way that was really deep. Because the sound lets me do that, because I was able to meditate and go and do what my therapist wants me to do with brain spotting, but it hurts. And so, but I know how important it is to process that and to do the crying. I just allow myself the tears, and I'm still at a cry every day level. When I'm alone, I just stop in my tracks and realize that he's gone and just start crying because it's just sad. But that experience of the sound bath was really something that let me, kind of release, and something that is really good, when being with my boyfriend. I feel really safe around him when I have these moments too. Where I feel like the grief just hits me out of nowhere, and we may be having dinner, we may be doing something, and then it just hits me. But he will stop with me and just hug me and let me cry and just be there for me and just be there while I cry it out. And it's been really great.
My go-to coping mechanism throughout my life has been some form of dissociation, some form of burying things with substances and that kind of stuff, some form of whenever the emotions come up, I figure out some way to compartmentalize them and try to deal with them later. Just please, anybody listening to this, the way to do it, if you're going to process this stuff, feel it when it's happening. Feel it when it comes up.
Yeah,
it's
that's
so crucial. It really is. I think that it's not emphasized enough. I hesitate to compare grief to trauma because you experiencing the feeling of grief is just part of natural emotions that come with a loss like this.
Right.
But it can become traumatic if you swallow those emotions when they come up and you don't let yourself feel them. It gets trapped in your body.
That's key. Feel them and they will come out eventually in some bad way and bite you in the ass. They will. When you said, hey, let's, why don't we do the episode about grief? That's why I was open to it, because it's good for me, and it's good to talk about my dad, and it's good to talk about, to remember him and to process this and to just sit with it and I know I'm going to be a little bit sad when we hang up, and I'm going to be thinking about it. Am I going to write about it? Probably, I don't know. Are you going to see me on TikTok talking about being sad in 3 hours? Yeah, most likely. But that's part of my process, right? It's what I'm doing is just I write it down. It's a way of journaling, and I do think the overwhelming advice from people who know have been to feel it and to go through it. And the way that they, the cliches track, right? The only way out of it is through it, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And
it's real. It's real. Some of the cliches are worth listening to. I wanted to touch on the sound bath thing that you mentioned.
Oh my God.
So I love
amazing.
sound baths. It's funny that you brought that up because just the other day I went to my first improv class. I was looking at their upcoming events, and they have a sound bath coming up in the next couple of weeks. One of my friends was there, also autistic. This is crucial in my mind. They saw on the events that the sound bath was coming up, and they were like, I've never been to a sound bath. That sounds like my nightmare, basically. Because if you think about it, if you've never done it, you don't know what it sounds like. You don't know what the experience is like, especially as someone who's autistic, maybe sensitive to noise or sound. It might sound kind of intimidating.
I was nervous at my first one. I thought I was going to hate it too when I went to my first one. And I was and I have to lie there next to people. I'm like, what if I don't like these people? And the sound, and I have to I was all kinds of awkward until I was there.
Yeah, but it's so great. And what I was trying to explain to my friend was that
it's so great.
it feels like it envelops you. It makes me more likely to be present. It's easier for me to be present because of the vibration,
grounding.
and it takes over everything, all of your senses in such a lovely way.
Yeah, it is kind of like all encompassing and grounding, and the vibration, the sound of it. I encourage every neurodivergent person to try it. I'm not saying it's going to work for everybody, because as we know well, neurodivergent people are all very unique and different from each other. So it's very true that this could be an autistic person's worst nightmare. But I do definitely encourage trying it, because to me it was transformative in the way that it allowed me to process a lot of things that I was never able to process. I mean, I get the benefits of meditation now, but the only way I'm able to meditate is through sound. I've tried it all the other ways, and breath doesn't do it. Yoga doesn't do it. All the other things don't envelop me in that way. The sound is so immersive.
It really is. And I do just want to throw this out there for any listeners that might be like curious, but maybe you haven't ever done a sound bath. You don't know what it's like. There are plenty of YouTube videos where people are doing sound baths. And if you have like noise canceling headphones, it can give you a sense at least of like what the sound is like. It's not as immersive, obviously, as being in the room with the bowls, but you could try that out in a way for you to be able to handle it, basically. So you're not stuck somewhere.
That's a good way to put it. Remember that if you go and you hate it, you can leave.
Yep. Always an option. Always. In most situations.
Always an option to stand up and leave. I've learned that now in my old age. It's something that I've learned to protect my peace at all costs.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I wanted to share a little bit about my healing process through the loss of my father. Less than a year after my dad had passed away, like I said, I had been compartmentalizing a lot of my emotions. I didn't dive headfirst into like processing anything. I did the opposite. And I was still drinking at the time. So I'm sure I like leaned a lot on that. But less than a year after he passed, I ultimately checked myself into a psychiatric hospital voluntarily. I was there for a week. And at the time I was doing crisis work, like working in the community, meeting with people that were actively in psychiatric crisis. So I was just like re-traumatizing myself on a daily basis and not dealing with this loss. Thankfully, I found like a facility where I hadn't already worked there. So I wasn't running into people that I knew at the psych hospital. That's not going to be like necessarily the most pleasant experience for everyone, but sometimes it's necessary. And I'm thankful that I did it. It was kind of like a really expensive vacation, basically. I needed things to stop at work so I could have a second to process. And that's how it ended up playing out. But several years later, I think it might have been in 2023, I started doing ketamine-assisted psychotherapy, which I'm still doing to this day. I do the sessions at home. Something that was incredibly key to my healing of the loss of my father was I just happened to I don't like plan out like what I'm going to process during these sessions. It just kind of comes to me, and the universe decides what it's time for me to think about. And one time I had a session where as I was under, it just like the essence of my dad appeared. It was really interesting. I don't do well with like visualizing stuff in my mind's eye. Like that aphantasia stuff is definitely a thing for me. And so it wasn't like I saw his face or like his head or anything like that, but it was like literally like an orb. And I just knew that it was him. I didn't need him to look like himself. It was just his energy that was there. And I remember that like during that session in my mind, I was like communicating with him, and I kept telling him like, hey, I'm okay. Like, I'm good. Everything's all right. I'm okay. And he was like, I'm okay. I'm okay too. And we were just both like, everything's okay. Like, it's all okay now.
Everything's fine.
And I didn't need it to be deeper or to like go more in depth with him to talk about what is okay. It was just, I needed to know that things were fine now. He's in a place where he was able to tell me that. And that was just, I think that was really, it was a really beautiful experience. It's something I never could have like willed to happen. It had to happen one way or another, because before it was very like, maybe today I'm upset because he's gone. Maybe the next day I'm upset because he didn't give me the childhood I wish he could have given me. Maybe the next day I'm, it's back to me being sad because I miss him, And so I feel like that experience was able to get me to a place where it just feels like everything's okay. At least with regard to the loss of him from my life. Like, I know that he's doing okay wherever he is.
I try that too. I try to think, I have a lot of, he's missing out on this. He's missing out on that. Like, this happened. And it's hard for me not to have those feelings because I have kids, I have teenagers, and there's a lot of milestones. And all of these milestones that are happening, that have happened since the last 6 months, have made me miss him. Max is in band. Max is playing trumpet. Charlotte did this. Every single thing makes me think my dad is not here for it. But I try to think, I'm not a religious person, but I am a spiritual person. And I do believe in energy. I believe in the universe. I believe in all those things. And I do think, in a way, he knows. He knows.
Mm-hmm.
He knows. If he needs to know, he knows. I don't need to tell him it's not like that anymore. That's just not how it works. But it's not that he's missing out. I'm the one missing out on his reaction of it. And I miss that and I get that. But he's okay, basically.
Yeah.
And we have to accept that in terms of like not feeling sad of like what he would be missing, because he's not here to miss it. And it sounds callous, but it isn't. It isn't. It's a way to look at it that helps me look at it as it's more about his memory. My therapist did tell me once that I am literally her most resilient patient ever. So,
how do you feel about hearing that?
No, girl, I carry that badge. It matters to me more than like a Pulitzer might. Right? Like, it's like, you know what?
Like you're winning therapy. I'm the best patient.
I'm the best patient. You have no idea how proud that makes me feel, because it's like, look at me functioning over here, doing all fine, being all resilient. He did say, for what it's worth, I could be, because this didn't happen to me in a vacuum of shittiness, to be fair. I mean, my dad passed when I was in the middle of having lost my job and not recovered it yet, which is where I am right now. November is going to be a year since I got laid off, and I still don't have a full-time job. And yes, I'm working, because if not, I wouldn't still be in the house I'm in, but I don't want to be freelancing. I would love to have a job. And I'm still looking, or I would like to find stability in the freelancing that I can't find, that I can't seem to find. It's hard. I already felt unstable in life without having, the job. I've had a full-time job for 20 years. So it's hard for me to lose my job, as so many people have these days. And I did lose it under terrible circumstances, and I was asking for accommodations that weren't approved and things like that. But the thing is that after 20 years in the workplace, I stopped being in it, and that's made me feel all kinds of lost. And months after that, in dealing with that, I lost my dad, and that really destabilized me. And so my therapist is impressed that I didn't like that. I've kept pushing because I have to.
I don't want to make any assumptions about like how we all kind of handle these things differently. And I think that kind of burying yourself in productivity can be a way to help process and deal with these really big feelings that we're dealing with. I think that at least if you're doing that, it's wonderful that you have support And it's wonderful that you have a therapist that you actually like, which can be really hard for us to
Oh my
find
God.
as neurodivergent people.
It took me years. It took me
Yeah.
years and several of them. It took me several of them. It took me getting betrayed by one. I have several years of therapy drama to share.
Same. Literally same.
You know the best friend that left me? She's actually not just a therapist, but a specialist in grief.
Oh, interesting. Fun.
Yeah, I couldn't have needed her more when she left. I was like, holy shit, that
just adds layers, like the compound grief, like you mentioned.
Yeah.
I just wanted to throw out there, like, with this little thing I have around my neck with my dad's ashes, like you were talking about how your dad's missing things and there's some kind of like reconciling you're needing to do mentally of like reframing that, like he's not actually currently missing them. You just miss having him there for these milestones. I will say that like having this has been helpful in that way. Like I wear this whenever I want to feel close to him or if I have like some big milestone going on. Like I wore it whenever I got married during the pandemic. Cause it would have been cool to have him there. It's nice to just like literally have a piece of him to bring with me whenever I wish he was around.
You know, I'm going to think about that and see if I can get that done before we scatter them.
It can't hurt, right? Like
it can't hurt. It's a nice idea. I like it. Or a little urn to have, right? I like that idea.
And I think it's nice for people to know that this exists and just like literally having them near you when you need them there. We've been talking for a while now, and I just wanted to check in with you and see like, is there any kind of aspect of this grief journey or anything that you already had in mind that you wanted to talk about before we wrap up? Is there anything that we haven't covered yet that you wanted to mention?
I guess I just want to say, even within the loss, I think I was lucky that I had such a good dad, that I get to say good things about him. I'm glad that I have so many good things to say and to remember about him because, you know, nobody's perfect, but there is so much good to rescue. And, you know, there's so much to say about how everybody seems to be perfect once they die, right? But that's not the case. I like that, you know, that I have so many nice things and that I can remember him so fondly and so with so much love. And so I'm grateful for that as well. And the fact that I have these memories and the photos that I've got and the stories I can tell and retell other people and my kids. And so I miss him, but I'm grateful of who he was.
And his memory and his energy and his soul lives on through you. And that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. And he was a writer. He was an author. And I did get it from him. So that's for sure living through him.
Yeah. His legacy. Well, Romina, again, thank you so much for being vulnerable, for agreeing to talk to me about such a heavy topic. I think that this is just something that we all need to get a little bit more comfortable with talking about candidly and openly because it's a reality of life. That being said, I want to give you a chance to plug anything or like tell people how they can find you on socials if they want to follow along in your journey. If there's anything if you want to talk about your podcast, anything like that, feel free to do that.
But most of what I do these days, especially, is about advocacy. And I do also just write content because I'm a writer and I joke a lot, but you can find me by my name and last name on LinkedIn and TikTok and also on my website, which is literally my name and last name.com. It's easy. It's really easy to find me. And if you want to work with me, I do a lot of things around writing and digital marketing. And I do want to thank you, Neely, for the space to do that. And to talk about grief as well, because it was good for me. It helped me. It's as much part of my process as I hope it may be for others.
I think hearing these experiences, no matter how tough or complicated they might be, I think it just is helpful to normalize these topics because they are normal. whether we want to face that or not. That's just the reality. So I appreciate you, Romina, for being here. I'll make sure and have all of your links in the description below. So go find Romina, check out her content. She's wonderful. And yeah,
Thanks
thanks
you.
again so much for being here. Thanks everybody for listening, and we'll see you again soon.